I'd like to call the meeting, welcome to the January 26th meeting, Clovis City Planning Commission. Members of the public are encouraged to participate in meetings by accessing the webcast on the Clovis website, providing written comments at the same website, participating by phone, or coming to the Planning Commission meeting in person. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Cunningham, if you'll lead us in the flag salute.
You will join me in saluting the flag of our republic. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on tonight's agenda is we need to do a rotation of the Planning Commission Chair and Chair Pro Tem, and I would like to open that up.
Excuse me, can I do the roll call?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes you can.
Okay, Commissioner Antuna? Here. Commissioner Bedstead?
Here.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Here.
Commissioner Hatcher? Here. Chair Hinkle?
Sure. Okay, now we'll go into the rotation. And I'd like to ask members of the commission, it's open now for nominations.
Yes, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Michael Cunningham as chair.
I'll second that.
Okay. We'll take that for a vote, call for the vote on it.
Okay, we had a motion by Commissioner Antuna and a second by Commissioner Bedstead. So, Commissioner Antuna?
Yes.
Commissioner Bedstead?
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Yes.
Commissioner Hatcher? Yes. Chair Hinkle?
Yes. Okay, and I'd like to open up nominations for Chair Pro Tem.
I would be pleased to nominate Commissioner Alma Antuna for Chair Pro Tem.
I'll second. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Cunningham, and then a second by Commissioner Hatcher. So, Commissioner Cunningham?
Yes.
Commissioner Hatcher? Yes. Commissioner Antuna?
Yes.
Commissioner Bedstead?
Yes.
And Chair Hinkle?
Yes. Okay.
Script here.
I already did that.
Oh, okay.
That's already been done. It's,
Oh, okay.
we're down here. Commission comments.
Yeah, no, first I'll ask the Secretary, Mr. Secretary or Mr. City Planner, do you have some comments for us?
Yes, just a reminder to the Commission that we have joint meetings scheduled with the City Council on February 6th and March 20th. I'd like to gauge your interest in whether we should investigate the possibility of meeting for normal Planning Commission business earlier in the day on the 20th, or whether you'd prefer just to keep the regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting on March 23rd. The idea is just whether you want to come back to this room a second time in the same week, or whether we should try to work a little harder and maybe see if you can come in earlier, maybe at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the 20th to conduct business. If anybody has any thoughts they'd be willing to share now on that matter, whether it's just, does it work to come in the afternoon, or whether you have interest, we can follow up and see where it goes.
Commission have comments?
I'm open to coming earlier on the 20th.
It works for me. I can come in earlier.
And likewise, I'm available as early as 4 p.m.
Is it the 20th or the 21st?
It is.
I thought the 20th was a holiday. Maybe I'm confused. March, right? March. Is it March? Okay, never mind.
I won't answer that.
March 20th.
I can do either one, either day.
It sounds like there's interest in if we can set up something like a 4 o'clock meeting. We'll look at the business that's heading towards the 20th. If it looks like we can conduct that meeting in an hour, estimated, then we'll kind of pursue that. We have too many items where it just doesn't look like we can do it in an hour, then we'll have to keep it for the 23rd, and hopefully by your February meeting, we'll have that locked in. Also, I wanted to note that all 5 commissioners have confirmed their attendance at the Planning Commissioners Academy at the end of March. It's great. It's the first time I think we've had all 5 commissioners attend a training session like this. We'll also send a couple of staff members to that from the Planning Division. George and I will both attend, and then at least one member of the admin staff, Chad McCollum, is planning to attend. So it'll be a good group. As we get a little closer to that day, maybe we can talk about whether there's interest in coordinating for carpools and that kind of thing. But I think we're all good and confirmed. Hotel reservations made for March 29th through the 31st down in Garden Grove. I think that's all I've got for you this evening.
Okay, thank you. Comments from any commissioner? Announcements? We're all good there? Okay, then we're going to go into public hearings.
We have approval of minutes?
Oh, yes. Well, isn't that the first item up? To approve minutes? Yeah, approve minutes of November? Or November? Yeah, well, I'm running off a different one, but okay. Approval of minutes for November the 17th. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve minutes, November 17th.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes of November 17th by Commissioner Antuna, and a second by Commissioner Hatcher. Commissioner Antuna?
Yes.
Commissioner Hatcher?
Yes.
Commissioner Bedstead?
Yes.
Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Item number 1 for public hearings is conditional use permit 2020-004. Review of a previously approved conditional use permit allowing the expansion of an existing athletic facility to include outdoor athletic training, activities, and events for a portion of an approximately 0.6 acre property located at 340 Clovis Avenue with regard to compliance with the conditions of approval. Athletic performance applicant, David Standifer, representative, and staff is Dave Merchant.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Commission. The staff report that we distributed at the end of last week identified that the project was in substantial compliance with all of the conditions of approval. The improvements that had been outstanding in the previous months, the previous reviews, had since been completed, and we were just looking at a couple of punch list items that needed to be addressed. Since then, those punch list items have been completed or corrected, and the project today is in 100% compliance. We're pleased to announce. We'd appreciate if your inclination is to adopt the resolution that you would note in your motion that the project is in full compliance, and we'll make that adjustment in the final resolution. Happy to answer any questions if the Commission has any.
Okay, thank you. Since this is my first time, I'm allowed 3 mulligans today. Took it back. You have to give it. I missed an item. Apologize. We have space now for general public comment on any item not on the agenda, and please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less, or 10 minutes per topic. Is there anyone in the chamber wishing to make a comment not related to our agenda tonight? Seeing none, is there any online?
There are none.
Thank you. Apologies again. So now we're back to comments from for the staff from any of the commissioners. Seeing none. Right? Okay, then I'll open to public comments. both as attendees and online. The applicant is first invited to provide any presentation they wish to make. I see a head shaking in the back, so happy, presume, okay. Any other person wishing to address the commission on this item, pro or con? Seeing none, anyone online?
There are none.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the commission then. Mr. Merchant, any closing comments, final?
No, we're good, thank you.
Then, that's fine. We'll, close the public hearing then, and, bring it back to the commission for deliberation and motion. Or is this just advice? No, it shouldn't require a motion.
We're approving.
Yeah, it's agendized as a hearing, so it wouldn't require a motion to establish that DCUP.
I'm ready to make a motion unless there's any discussion.
Go right ahead.
All right. I'm happy to see this come to completion here. So I'll make a motion to approve CUP 2020 TAC 004.
I'll second.
Can we get, a clarification, can we add to that the project has been found to be in full compliance?
I will remake the motion, yes. So, restated, make a motion to approve CUP 2020 TAC 004, with a finding that the project is in full compliance.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Call for the roll, please.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Bedstead to approve the resolution for CUP 2020-004 with the note that it's in full compliance, and we have a second by Commissioner Hatcher. Commissioner Bedstead?
Yes.
Commissioner Hatcher?
Yes.
Commissioner Antuna?
Yes.
Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes.
Chair Cunningham?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Item number two, and, I believe this will require 3 different motions, is to consider items associated with approximately 1.04 acres of land located on the north side of Alluvial between Sunnyside and Fordham Avenues, Stallion Development and Construction, Armin Zakarian, owner applicant, Dan Zach, representative. And it looks like, Lily Cha is our staff member on that.
Oh, will you be reading each of the?
Oh, okay, should I? Yeah, okay. We'll consider, consider adoption of, rezone R 2022-001, request to adopt an environmental finding of a mitigated negative declaration for GPA 2020-001 and a rezone 2022-001. B, to consider approval of GPA 2022-001, a request to amend the general plan to redesignate the subject property from low-density residential 2.1 to 4.0 dwelling units per acre, classification to the medium-high, classification 7.1 to 15 dwelling units per acre. And C, consider approval of R 2022-001, a request to rezone the subject property from the R1 7500 single-family residential 7,500 square feet zone district to the R2 multifamily medium high-density residential zone district. Now we're at Lily Cha.
Thank you so much, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. So I just wanted to point out a couple of things before moving on into the presentation. There are a couple of typos on the subject description. So in letter A, in the staff report, it's written as GPA 2020-001, but should be GPA 2022-001. And then Chair caught this, but in the staff report, the third consideration is labeled as B, but should be C. So just wanted to point that out. And then the second thing is that I did receive correspondence earlier this afternoon, which was provided to you on your DS as a memo. The person did request that the correspondence be read into the record, and so if the person isn't here to speak on behalf of the project this evening, I'll go ahead and read the correspondence into the record during the public comment period. So this request here is associated with the proposed development of a 12-unit multifamily apartment complex, which is proposed at 1491 Alluvial Avenue. So the site is generally located north of Alluvial between Sunnyside and Fordham Avenues. It's about 1 acre in area and is currently vacant. The site is surrounded by single-family residential properties to the north, to the east, and across Alluvial to the south. And to the west is a church site which has future plans to grow into their, the entirety of their site. Again, the project is a 12-unit multifamily development, and to move forward with this project, a general plan amendment and rezone are required. So the applicant is proposing to redesignate the subject site's general plan land use designation from the existing low-density residential, which allows for 2.1 to 4 dwelling units per acre, to the proposed medium-high density residential that would allow development between 7.1 to 15 dwelling units per acre. The project itself has a density of 12 units per acre. Associated with the general plan amendment is the request to rezone the subject site from the existing R1 7500 zone district to the proposed R2 multifamily residential zone district. If approved, the development would have to adhere to the R2 zone district standards as well as the multi-development standards. So the project, again, is a proposed 12-unit multifamily complex with 10 two-bedroom units and 2 3-bedroom units. There are 2 points of access as shown on this site map here from Alluvial Avenue, here and here. And parking will be provided via garage, which is a structure that's proposed along here, and then uncovered parking along the eastern and western side of the main building. The main building is about 16,160 square feet. It's a 2-story building, and the garage structure is about 3,160 square feet and a 1-story building. The distance between the main building and the eastern property line is about 42 feet, and its distance from the northern property line is about 96 feet. And then the project will also be providing open space, about 5,400 square feet of that, in this centrally located area here via a open lawn area and a kind of covered trellis seating area here. The design was kind of intended to kind of provide a separation from the development on the surrounding the site. And then with this project, the applicant will be providing tree plantings along the perimeter and utilizing the Japanese blueberry tree, which can grow up to 30 feet tall. And then the applicant will also be required to provide a masonry block wall along the perimeter, specifically the east, north, and west perimeter. So this kind of exhibit here is just to kind of give you a rough idea of how this site would lay out and how it would look like next to the surrounding development. These elevations, this slide here shows the main building elevations. On the top is the front elevation or the south-facing elevations from Alluvial Avenue. And the building height, the overall building height is 25 feet to the parapet, and then there's a little tower, as you can see on the right side there, that is 33 feet overall in height. And then on the bottom of the slide is the rear elevation, the elevation facing the north. On the top left is the west elevation, so this is the elevation facing the church site, and then on the bottom right is the east elevation, which is the elevation facing the single-family residences on the east. And as you can see, there are no windows here. The applicant removed windows that were originally planned there just to try to preserve some privacy for the neighbors. And here are the garage elevations. So the overall building height is 12 feet. So per city policy, the applicant is required to hold 2 neighborhood meetings, one prior to the Planning Commission meeting, and then another that would occur prior to the City Council meeting. The first meeting was held on April 5th of last year. The applicant did hold 2 meetings because he wanted the second meeting to kind of address and work with the neighbors on some of their concerns regarding the project, to see if he could redesign the project to help appease some of the concerns that were raised. Staff did receive 4 letters of opposition, 3 of which are included in the attachment of the report, and the 4th, again, received earlier today, provided to you in the memo. So comments, general comments from the meeting as well as the letters include the concern in the depreciation of property values. The city doesn't consider property values when it comes to land use, so we're unable to address that concern. And then when it comes to traffic, a traffic study analysis was conducted, and the city engineer did determine that the project would not provide a significant impact in this area. Regarding noise and lighting, just like any other development, the project will be required to adhere to the city's development standards and performance standards. And then in regards to the invasion of privacy concern, again, the applicant did make some effort to design the site to preserve some privacy. So as mentioned, the east elevation, all windows are eliminated. The building is situated as close as possible to Alluvial Avenue as development code would allow, to provide a large separation between the properties to the north. And then again, the applicant will be providing tree plantings and a masonry block wall along the perimeter. There was a comment regarding the increase of water usage. We did do a water and sewer analysis and found that there is sufficient capacity with this project. And then in regards to the increase in crime in the area, the project itself was distributed to our police department for review, and they did not express any concerns related to this project. So the project is consistent with the city's goals and policies of the general plan. It would not be detrimental to the public health and welfare, and is physically suitable based on the site layout that was provided for the proposed parcel. And the project would develop an otherwise unused property or infill property. It'll provide housing alternative types in the area and contribute towards the city's housing stock. And for those reasons, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the environmental finding for a mitigated negative declaration and approve GPA 2022-001 as well as rezone 22-001. And this concludes my report.
Thank you. Do we have questions from the commission to the staff? None? Seeing none, then I'll open it up in the public comments portion to, first of all, the applicant, if they're present, to make the presentation. Yes, the Diaz. There's a little button there that will turn on the mic so we can have you on the record.
Hi, everyone. There we go. Hi, everyone. Dan Zach. I am a consultant to Stallion Construction and Development. Thank you. So I have a brief presentation prepared, although Lily did an excellent job of covering a lot of the same subject area that I had prepared slides for. So I'll kind of breeze through it, but I'll touch on anything else that might seem to be pertinent. Just wanted to start out with a little bit about Stallion Construction. It's a family-owned company. They're headquartered here in Clovis. They have a 15-year track record of building really good quality things in North Fresno and Clovis. Some of their recent projects are Heritage Crossing, which is a skilled nursing facility just across the city limit line in Fresno on Alluvial. And 1885 Austin Avenue, which is a 6-unit complex around Fowler and Ashland Avenues, which came out very nice. And then they're working on, next to the skilled nursing facility, a new multifamily project at 2820 East Alluvial. So fairly active in the area. As Lily said, this project would be located in the northern part of the city around Alluvial and Sunnyside. She talked about, zoning in the area and other existing conditions, so I won't bore you with all of that repetition. This is a landscape plan, which she also showed. The units lay out, really nicely on the site. As she said, there's 10 two-bedroom units and 2 3-bedroom units. So these are, larger apartments that will provide pretty nice accommodations. They'll be market rate rents. The 2-bedroom units are about 1,100 square feet, and the 3 bedrooms are a little bigger. 1,350. And so in-unit washer and dryer, very nice unit. Every apartment has a balcony, so they'll, in addition to the common open space that Lily pointed out, they'll each have their own private outdoor space as well. Spacious floor plans. Our architect, Nicholas Crawford, is also here if you have specific technical questions about the building. This is a cross-section to show how the units load with an exterior staircase and how the balconies are oriented. An earthy, rich material and color palette that we think will look really great from Alluvial. The front elevation, a lot of windows and balconies, and so people walking by, driving by on Alluvial will have a nice, friendly facade greeting them rather than maybe the back sides of buildings or block walls. So we think it'll create a good pedestrian environment and will be pleasant to drive by as well. This is the rear perspective, also attractive. And then skipping past the elevations here, you can see this is the east elevation where the windows were removed to address those privacy concerns. So, as Lily said, the neighborhood meetings were held on the 5th, and then a follow-up on April 27th to touch on some of those concerns that were heard. There were concerns about potential pedestrian safety issues, and so stop signs were added at both exits, as well as a buffer to make sure cars stop a distance behind the sidewalk to avoid conflicts with folks walking by. Turning movements will be restricted to right in and right out only to avoid people having to turn left to get to eastbound Alluvial, which could present some conflicts. There were concerns about that, so that was responded to. There were also concerns about potentially cars queuing up or stacking and causing a backup onto Alluvial and creating traffic issues. And the project is not actually gated for automobiles. The buildings themselves have a gate around them, but the cars will be able to flow into the driveway without having to stop, wait for a gate to open, which is usually what leads to any stacking that happens, and so they'll be able to flow in freely. There were concerns about noise, and so speed bumps will be added. They were added into the site plan that was submitted with this rezoning application, so keep people driving slow on the way to their parking space. To address those concerns. The trash enclosures were also moved, and the original concept had them at the top left corner or the northwest corner, and so to avoid any potential nuisance issues, they were moved closer to the interior of the site. in response to that. And then, you heard a little bit about the privacy concerns too. So as Lily said, the building is as far forward, in the site as, the setback requirements will allow, so that gives a nice, buffer to the north. The garages also provide, a bit of a visual buffer, no windows facing east, as we've already discussed. And then also the planting, will really help with any remaining sight lines that there might be. The, Japanese blueberry is a really, thick, tree. It's an evergreen, so all year you get the benefit of that screening. They're fast growing. The project proponent actually has several of these on his property. They're a really nice tree. He likes them personally, and they do a great job as a screening tree. There was a little bit of an analysis done by Mr. Crawford of sight lines into the adjoining properties to make sure that those were blocked. As you can see on this cross-section, the project site actually sits 2.5 to 3 feet lower than the adjacent properties with the single-family homes to the north and to the east. So between that, you have a little bit less of an angle into adjoining yards, and the 6-foot block wall and the those tall trees will really block anything that might remain. The first view was looking to the east. This is looking kind of to the northeast. You can see in the lower right corner there, the little cross-section line. And then finally going to the north, these are those sight lines. So the garage is a major obstruction. This concrete block wall from the project side, the multifamily site, is effectively 10 feet tall when it's on top of that higher elevation of the adjoining properties, and so it's a very good screening effect too. So that was definitely taken to heart. That was good feedback that we got at the workshops, and that was taken into consideration. So I worked in public sector, urban planning for 23 years, and so it's always a big deal to amend the general plan, and it's not something you want to take lightly. So I think it's really good that you see strong justification for it. And so I think there are a couple of good reasons to consider this. One is, the property is vacant right now, and getting it put into economic use will, I think, bring a benefit to the area. It was in pretty rough shape when Stallion Construction purchased it, and so it'll be a big improvement if they're able to develop. Single family would be challenging on this site. You might be able to get 4 lots there. Then you'd have 4 driveways with 4 different exits and entrances onto alluvial. So some of those traffic conflict concerns probably wouldn't be alleviated by sticking with single family homes. You have more conflict points. The density ends up being only a moderate increase over what's allowed now, because with the 4 single-family lots that would be allowed between SB 9 or AB 68, some of the pro-housing state legislation that's passed recently, you might be able to get a junior, an ADU or a junior ADU even 2 to 3 units per lot. So you could end up with 8 to 12 here anyway, but the site plan proposed is a much nicer layout, more parking, more open space, and so if you're going to end up with 12 anyway, it probably, or up to 12 potentially, this is probably a better layout, traffic-wise and open space-wise and everything. So as Lily said, it sticks with the vision of the general plan, even though it recommends changing the land use. It creates a range of housing types, promotes walkable neighborhoods by that great pedestrian interface with alluvial, and putting multifamily, with a good connection to a bus stop about a 10-minute walk away. It preserves open space and farmland by utilizing a parcel within the existing city and directs growth to existing communities instead of to the suburban fringe of the community. So those are all goals within your general plan. And then finally, we think it'll have a positive fiscal impact for you. The assessed value right now is about $575,000, and we expect it to be $2.5 to $3 million assessed value after the project is complete, which will probably represent 300 to 400% increase in revenue from property tax from this site for the city of Clovis. So we think there will be a benefit over time to the community for that too. And that concludes my presentation, and Nick and I will be here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Sack?
I have a couple questions. Sounds like both as the city presented and you, that there were some, I'll say maybe concessions or mitigating factors that were put in place. I know one that we've seen and appreciated at different points in time are the windows, you know, not staring right in folks' backyards. Right. That's a thing. So, I don't know if that came from neighborhood feedback and that was an adjustment, but what other, I guess, what other asks by the neighbors came about, and were any of those, such that you were unwilling to accommodate them? I guess what's really open from your perspective that...
That's a great question. So I hadn't joined on to the project team yet when we had those workshops, but I met with Mr. Zakarian and Mr. Crawford last week to get up to speed, and my understanding is those points that I laid out were the main points that came up, and they were willing to address all those with the changes that I identified. Nick, is there anything that I left out that had come up that you guys weren't able to accommodate, or did I hit all those main points? Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions?
Yes, I want to thank you for taking concern to the neighbors. This is one of the better designed projects that have been in front of us for a long time. I don't know if people are taking any, the landowners around this project are watching what's going on in Sacramento. But if you're happy with the way the Bay Area looks and areas of LA look, then don't do anything to this and you'll get a LA or Bay Area project into there. Right now, they can come in and you can see 24 units in there, 5 stories high. Okay, so if you're not happy with this, hang around and someone will come in with a project because that's what Sacramento wants. They don't want what you have in front of you right now. They want as many people as can possibly be fit into that project. So this is a heck of a, you're getting a lot more now than what you're going to get down the road on it. Also, is there any way for you to put in your rules for the land, for the renters or whatever on this, to use the garages for parking of cars and not a Daryl's mini-story so that we get cars off of the streets and around the area so that we're using the garages for what they are. I've seen this done in the LA area that you cannot store anything in the garage area. And I don't know if you've thought about that.
Right. I'm not sure if that's been discussed between Armand and Nick, but Stallion builds and holds. They're long-term investors, and so they don't tend to flip these things, right? So they're looking for something that's well managed, and you know, they're part of this community, so they don't want to just kind of blow and go. So I can't, you know, confirm 100% without Mr. Zakarian here tonight, but I'd be perfectly happy to suggest that to him. I think that's actually a really good suggestion, and it benefits them to have those garages used rather than having people spilling out everywhere as well. There's one garage unit per apartment unit. There will be you know, amenities like electrical vehicle charging and whatnot. So, yeah, the point is for those to be used. I'm sure he'd be very amenable to that sort of suggestion.
And if I may add, it is a requirement that the garage be used for parking only because it's counted towards the required parking.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, anyone else have questions? I had a couple, but since you joined after the meetings, then you probably can't answer them. But
I've tried to get up to speed as much as possible, so between myself or Nick, we might be able to
I'm
address
just curious, the setbacks on the east side, 45 feet to the property line, right? Mm-hmm. And then to the north is 96 feet, is that correct?
That's about right. I don't know the exact number. I think it might have been a little bit more. Is that right, Lily?
Yeah, that's about right. It's in the site plan that we have,
Yeah.
which I did have up there if you want to.
And, did this come about because of the, concerns of the, neighborhood?
Let me go back, here we go, here's our, site plan. So, you know, part of it is just inherent to the design of the site too. All of this definitely exceeds the, minimum required setbacks for, the proposed zoning district, but to accommodate the drive aisles for the parking in the horseshoe-shaped, design, which I think is a really great design because it keeps, you know, a really nice public presence to the complex. But I think the real way that the privacy concerns were addressed was not as much with those dramatic setbacks. That was just partially of just laying out the site well. But the screening, the removing the windows, those were some of the big things that were done. The site lends itself to pretty large setbacks just if you want to handle the parking in a more artful way than just a parking lot right at the back of the sidewalk facing alluvial.
What I'm trying to get at is, the developer, my presumption is the developer worked with the people in the neighborhood last April and made certain changes within the property as a result of.
Yes, that is correct, yeah. Mm-hmm, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, is there anyone else in the chamber wishing to speak on this item, for or against? Seeing none, is there anyone on?
You got him on.
Anyone wishing to speak for or against this project? Okay. Come forward, please, to the dais. We request that you identify yourself, and you can adjust the microphone to fit, so we can get it on the record.
Is this good? Okay. Thank you. My name is Mrs. Alvord, Linda Alvord. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I thank you for your time and service to our community. Learning about planning and zoning has certainly given me a respect for the work that the commission does. Enterprise is a mainstay of Clovis, and I'm thankful for the many businesses and neighborhoods and opportunities that we have. However, revising the general plan should be considered very thoroughly. Policies 3.6 and 5.1 were addressed and used as reasons for allowing an amendment to this plan, but those policies apply to 5 acres and more, and this is only 1 acre. Letters for the, a response to the letter of justification for the rezone and a plan amendment is that there are no or very few neighborhoods or complexes north of Herndon that feature multifamily housing. However, in reality, there is the Sierra Ridge, Sierra Hills, Granite Ridge, the Fountains at Alluvial, Cottonwood Grove, which are on either Alluvial or, Fowler Avenue or Clovis Avenue that are already multifamily apartment buildings. In addition, the city already has a large multifamily complex under construction on Spruce Avenue between Peach and Helm near the Best Buy Target Plaza. The apartment complex that is proposed here would not help the city address specific state housing needs for affordable housing, as the units would be priced at market rate. This city block that is proposed right here is R1, and all development that has been put on this city block between Alluvial and Nees on the south and the north, and then Sunnyside on the west and Fowler on the east, has always been R1. In about 2010, Bedford Avenue was extended as a go-through street before it had been a street that wasn't fully developed. That developer put in single-family housing. On the northwest corner of that city block at Nees and Sunnyside, which was recently developed, it was all single-family housing. So allowing something that is totally different on the city block would be very incongruent with the goals of the city. The letter of justification states that on page 3, the design of the building presents windows and balconies towards the public sidewalk, which would create an inviting and interesting streetscape for passing pedestrians. But do people really want to walk by and see somebody's balcony where they're having a barbecue or trying to unwind from the day? I'm not sure. The balconies, even though the windows on the east side have been eliminated, the balconies still have a 180-degree view of the surrounding neighborhood, either towards the south or the north. It is proposed that if there were 4 individual driveways, if 4 houses were built, that would be more disturbing to the sidewalk than the proposed very wide 2 driveways that are proposed with the development, allowing for entrance and exit of cars. So I'm not sure that the driveway issue is really an issue. I would be very interested to see if Stallion Construction could develop this apartment plan on other undeveloped parcels within the sector of our community, possibly between Highway 168 and Spruce Avenue near the Cottonwood Grove, or even at Alluvial and Temperance. I do have questions for the staff and for the commission about if there would be another neighborhood meeting. Will all the homes be and if so, will all homes within 800 feet be given mailed, written notice of any other meetings that might happen? And I would like to know what the process moving forward would be.
Thank you, Ms. Alford.
Thank you.
Any questions?
What is your address for this?
What, our property is on the north side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could ask you, would you be happy if they put 4 homes in there?
Yes.
Okay, today, those 4 homes can turn into 12 homes.
I've
Right.
heard some of that.
It is. It can happen.
By right. They don't come before us, right?
There is actually no more R1 zoning, okay? So I could put in 2 smaller units in my backyard without the control of traffic, without the control of cars, places to park the cars. You're looking at a lot more confusion in the area than what you're looking at here. This here's a great plan. If you've come to this commission meetings as long as we have been here and things put in front of us, this is a tremendous development, and they've taken a lot of concern in for you residents around it. And I can see a real headache down the road with what you can get in. And I know that, because I've talked to a couple of developers that would love to come in and put in 12 units in that, and they have less development costs than what is there with this, and it just makes sense for them to do that. So would you rather have that? Would you rather have this, which is a nicer complex with more thought put into the neighborhood, the surrounding homes, the traffic, and everything else within the area? So that's something you need to think about. Thank
Okay.
you.
May I ask you a question? Because I am confused. You said there is no R1?
Technically, no, there is no more R1 in California.
Even though that is still part of our general plan?
That's because the general plans have not been updated to what has been changed within the last 2 years.
Oh, okay. Well, that's very confusing then for a person from the public to look at our general plan and see something that's on the general plan and not
Believe me,
being...
Ms. Alford, you're not alone. We're easily confused as well.
You need to keep an eye to what's going on in Sacramento, and it's coming mainly out of the Bay Area, and a lot of it's now is coming out of the LA area. Some is coming out of San Diego, but they do not want this planning to go through the cities anymore. They want all of this to go through Sacramento, through their department, and the cost is going to go up because the developers are going to have to do everything in Sacramento, not locally. So instead of getting something done here, coming in every, maybe once a week or whatever, they're going to have to go up and spend 2 to 3 days in Sacramento and work on these projects. So keep an eye on what's going on in Sacramento. What you have in front of you is sure a lot better than what's in the tunnel.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate all your time because I know you guys have other responsibilities outside of this hall. Thank you.
And we thank you for coming down, ma'am.
Ms. Alford, I just wanted to say thank you for coming in and voicing what you had. You obviously did extensive research to be able to speak here eloquently with us, which you don't, we're just like you, so you don't have to, but I appreciate all your efforts that you did, and they're not gone wasted. We listened to everything that you had to say, regardless of what Sacramento is doing. We want you to know that we care about our residents here, and we care that you come to these meetings and voice your opinion because it does matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Atuna. Any other things, Ben? Okay.
No, thank you, ma'am, for coming.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time. Is there anyone else in the chambers wishing to speak? Come right up, sir. Adjust the microphone to fit your needs and identify yourself, if you would, for the record.
The red light is on.
Yes, sir.
My name is Darren Alford. We live at 1538 Bedford, which is right the other side of the fence on the north side. So I brought with me something that I rehearsed. It takes 4 minutes and 37 seconds to say. But apparently Sacramento has blown that up. If we don't have the power to develop the way we want to locally, we need to push back. How do we do that? Because this is asking for us to change our general plan by a draconian amount. We're not just elevating a little bit, it's going up 2 levels in order to accommodate this, and it's under the threat from Sacramento that it could be worse. As far as I'm concerned, living right where I do, this is bad. The traffic that's going to be going in and out of where 12 families live is within 6 feet of my back fence, which used to be a backyard. The headlights coming up that driveway are not going to be mitigated by a 6-foot wall. They're going to shine into our 2nd-story bedroom windows. We've never had that before. It's very disturbing to hear what I'm hearing about this. We're being told that this, which I consider to be somewhat malignant in the neighborhood, is better than what we might be expecting. It sounds like it's time for us to move. This is very disturbing. I see you're nodding your head, yes. I would rather see a way to revisit this as 4 single-family dwellings and push back against Sacramento. Now, the houses don't have to be put in like stalls. I think that was a bit of a straw man. Just north that you can see there are houses that are not installed like little stalls. There's a way to do 4 single-family residents there to keep the character of the neighborhood. I think we're all familiar, as you mentioned, with what happens in urban settings where this high density is put into a neighborhood that's long established as single-family dwellings, you're going to start finding the owner occupiers are going to be selling off, turning this into a rental neighborhood. And whatever increase in property tax might be realized is going to be diminished over time as people sell off and as the rental property becomes what is common in the area, and they're going to be reassessed and it's going to go downward. You can see that over and over and over. It's why San Francisco is constantly low on revenue. Even though the rents are high, the property values are actually declining in these areas where this happens. I'd like to just say I oppose this. I'm very sad to hear what's going on in Sacramento. I wish I was surprised. I'm disgusted by a supermajority that we have that wants to run our town for us. And I really hope there's a way that we can find to push back. Right now, I haven't thought of anything in the last 10 minutes since I heard about this. But I don't believe that this is a good project for our neighborhood, just through common sense. That's all. Thank you.
Just for your information.
Yes.
The year 2022, 325,000 people moved out of California.
Roger that. Yeah.
That was announced today.
Yeah.
That we lost 325,000 people in California.
That's fewer than I expected.
Thank you, sir, for coming in.
Thanks.
We appreciate it.
I do want to let you know, reach out to your elected representatives. That's who is our voice. And bombard them with letters and phone calls. I mean, that's how we effectuate change. Maybe it'll do something, maybe it won't. Politicians, sorry. No, that's a personal opinion. But anyway, that is how you effectuate change there. Because once it comes here, there are rules and laws that go into place that we cannot do anything about.
Is there anyone else in the chambers? Come forward, sir, please.
Good evening. My name is Brian Warner, and I have been a resident at 814 North Fordham here in our city of Clovis since 1994. And my property lies just directly east, the one with the pool in the backyard. My intent here tonight was not to come to speak, but I wanted to address two items. Number one, Mr. Chair, you had a question regarding the two previous meetings. At those meetings, they had this site plan with the 45 feet and 90 feet setbacks already in place. Right. They did not change those due to the meetings that were held.
I think that's what Mr. Sack also
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that, number one. And number two, I do appreciate the builder taking into account removing some windows that are facing to the east and to the west. I think that would help the project. I'm disappointed in the project in the fact that it has to change the general plan that was laid out in 2013. It's less than 10 years old. I thought the planners did well at that time, and for them to change the general plan at this time, I think might be a travesty. And the second thing is, in changing that general plan, it's going to change the makeup of the neighborhood. And for me, you know, I moved here and I'm a transplant, and this is my home. And I appreciate what you guys do. Mr. Hinkle, I appreciate your comments. I wasn't aware of the nonsense that's going on in Sacramento with the ADUs and no single-family residences anymore. It's very disturbing to me. I will be reaching out to our elected officials to voice opposition to that. But I want you guys just to carefully consider the neighborhood. You know, seems very possible this project will push through. I was hoping the project would be more of a single level, as opposed to elevations, two-story units. I think one-story unit apartment complex there would make more sense than the proposed two-story. And that's what I had to say. I didn't even anticipate speaking tonight, but I felt compelled to hear my voice and address you folks. Do you have any questions?
You've done so well. Is there any questions from Mr. Warner? No questions. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming.
Thanks for your time.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Come right forward.
My name is Lori Werner, and we live at 814 North Fordham. I appreciate living in Clovis. We've been here for almost 30 years. There is something about this place that makes you want to stay. Our grandchildren are now in Clovis, less than a mile from us. I am a nurse at Clovis Community Hospital. I mean, this is our place. And yet, as I heard about speed bumps to minimize sound, that will not minimize the stereo. That is not going to, I don't see that as being advantageous for that reason. Maybe for the safety inside, but not for that. The other thing, our grandkids go to Century, and there is a lot of traffic. I think it is what it is, but to look at a number and not look at the people, and say it was not going to impact, it will impact. And there was one other thing that I wanted to say. When we bought our home, everything was zoned for single family. That's what we were told. That's how we live, is if we say something, we do what we say. And it's important to us for the next generations too. And so I'm really disappointed that that's been changed. And it's good to suggest that we reach out, because our group will reach out. We are a tight neighborhood, and we take care of each other. And so that's what the other thing is. So you probably can't hear me. So when you look at those homes, I want you guys to think if it was your home. Realistically think, if that was my home, how would it affect me? How would it affect my family? How would it affect my neighborhood? Community is very important, and it's huge in Clovis. One of the reasons we love being here. So that I would ask for that consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there any questions for Ms. Warner? None? Thank you. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Is there anyone else? No one else in the chair? Yes, sir. Come forward.
Yes, thank you for the time. My name is Brent Nelly. I live just on the north side. Actually, we back up to the school, the Century Elementary schoolyard. We're actually new to the neighborhood. We are new to the area. We moved from Colorado, and we were able to move into our home and become part of this great neighborhood in 2020, March of 2020. A very unique time, right? But what we've noticed, I grew up in Turlock, by the way. My wife was from here, but I haven't spent much time in Clovis prior to moving here. And what I really noticed was interesting about our neighborhood, and I'll just say I'm really, really grateful that we were able to get a home in this neighborhood. Not just this area, but this neighborhood. Bedford and Fordham, it has a unique layout that makes it feel so much more spacious. It's quieter. There's not as many cars all over the place. The streets are wider. than any of the little surrounding areas. And so I just want to speak to the quality of how this neighborhood was originally designed and how impactful that is on a day-to-day basis to the people who live there. And I have great pride in the neighborhood. There's great people there. As you can see in this photo, this plan does not fit that neighborhood. Darren spoke to the common sense of that. I think it is very clear. And I do want to say that I really appreciate Dan and Stallion Construction, or sorry, I forget the name. But the Stallion Company, in the time, clearly they've taken time, they've taken money to develop this. And so I want to make sure that doesn't go unaddressed. But as well as what Darren said, one of the examples was 4 stalls right next to each other. As you can see on the east and on the north side and a little bit further down, there are a number of cul-de-sacs. And so I think the best way to do this would actually be making them into cul-de-sacs. The stall structure is, I agree, it's quite ugly and kind of weird. And so I think there's a good way to do this if it were going to remain single family. But I also would support this being a single-story apartment complex. I think that would be the best compromise possible. My stance would be for it to remain single-family. However, I would be okay, and I think a number of other neighbors would be okay with a single-story. So those are just my comments. I think taking into account that the neighborhood was built right the first way, it was planned right in the beginning, and it does have a very specific character because it was planned that way, and this would significantly disrupt that character and the pleasure it is to live in this area. So I very much appreciate your time, appreciate all that you do for this city. That is all.
All right.
Thank you.
Any questions? No? Thank you for your time, sir. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else in the chambers wishing to speak? Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. My name is Randy Dunlap. I'm one of the houses that's on 824 North Fordham. Problem with the project, what I'm concerned about, I have 155 feet of back fence. So I've got the largest exposure to the project. You know, they talk about literally my living room is about probably 45 feet from the road, from cars coming in and out. Talking about sound, we can't, how can you buffer the sound? The speed bumps aren't going to do that. Like I said, it's not going to stop. Right across from my living room is parking spots right there. With tailpipes aimed directly at our house. Every time a car started in the morning, we're going to hear it. One of the concerns we said, the street they're talking about where cars coming out of the parking lot will only make right turns. The freeway is actually to the east. The freeway entrance is to the east. What we're concerned about, people aren't going to listen to that. They're not going to walk that sign. They're going to make left turns on that street. We have an issue where going east on Sunnyside, or on Alluvial, the 2 streets actually merge into one right before the Channel 53 lot that's across the side. Almost daily, you try to make a left turn into our neighborhood even, cars back up there, they try to go around you. There's been multiple accidents there. We don't see anything, I don't know if the city's planning on changing that or not. That's one of our big concerns also. But like I said, our neighborhood, it's been a pretty cohesive neighborhood. We've had basically everybody in that cul-de-sac other than one has been there since the houses were built. It's been a great neighborhood, and we just hate to have to sell, if we have to. But, privacy-wise, like I said, I've got a lot of that backyard exposed, and we just rather, if it had to be a single story, I think that would help. But literally, we would rather have homes in there, like it was planned to be from day one. But, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Dunlap. Any questions? None? Okay. Next person.
Evening. My name is Mark DeShays. My wife Andrea. We live at 1536, directly east, the largest, that long run from the corner to the east. Or did I say east? I'm sorry, north, behind the garages. The plan is what we were presented with. We were also presented with the possibility, the news that this is the best you're going to get, you might as well take it. That was stated more than once on both meetings. That's not acceptable to most people, that kind of take it or leave it kind of offer. Mr. Z has, he's been quite accommodating, but the main thing is traffic and at least 20 new cars every single day in an area where there was one driveway with one family. The changes that have happened since we moved in, which was 94, before Bedford was even through to Sunnyside, was open land and single, like those long, what's left, the parcels that are left were along Sunnyside there to Bedford, what is now Bedford, and then the homes that were built on Bedford. That was the newest change. They squeezed in one extra house on that stretch. If anybody's familiar with the corner, when you pull out of Bedford on the Sunnyside side, you can't see. You can't see any oncoming traffic to your left-hand side, the lanes closest to you. That house is right on that corner. That was rezoned because the house that was on it that was one lot with one house on it, much like what's left there now with the temple. On the Fortin side, since the day we moved in there, the way that second lane ends, there has been, I'm not exaggerating, every time I go through it, it's an issue. And I can go through it 4 to 8 times a day, and it's an issue. You are constantly looking behind you and not turning your wheels or anything like that because you get rear-ended. You're going right into oncoming traffic. It's really bad during rush hour. The only reason I bring that up is because that is planning commission things, I think. I think somewhere along the line we took what was given to us instead of thinking of something where we could push back, honestly push back against these forces, you know, in Sacramento or wherever they be. I honestly am opposed to anything over, I would say anything over 4 would be unacceptable. 4 I don't even like. Stallion has made an investment. He's bought something, and he wants to make money. He doesn't want to ruffle any feathers, but feathers are ruffled. We with what is coming in the future also, whether everybody wants to start building a ADU in your backyard for your parents or your kids or whatever, that scares me too. But for me, traffic and this density issue if that's even affordable, those apartments are affordable and will stay at the, market rate. I heard a different price quoted to me in these previous meetings, but, anyway, on traffic alone and what it's going to do and the ramifications of those next lots, what's going to be there, as far as it no longer becomes a neighborhood. And I think that's what we all want to do, is preserve neighborhoods. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shea. Any questions for? Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience?
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. My name's Callista Nelly. I live in just north of this proposed site, just across the street. And one thing that I didn't ask earlier, but I lived in an apartment for years before we bought our house, and there's 12 garages and 12 units, but there's going to be potentially 30 people living there. There's just not enough parking spaces for everyone that could potentially live there. So the street is going to get very, very crowded with cars parking and things like that. And on top of that, just around that corner is the school. So I don't know if you guys have driven past this when school's letting out, and some people let their kids walk home just by themselves. And on top of that, cars wrap around and start to back up where this is going to be. So traffic, like he mentioned, is going to be kind of a disaster. And I have a Bible study on Saturday mornings, and there's 8 of us in one apartment. Where's everybody going to park? On the street. And so he said it's still enjoyable to walk. I walk my dogs this exact loop on that street, and that's not enjoyable to walk when there's cars all along. You have to stop, and, you know, I have 3 big dogs. I'm not that big of a person, so having to stop them to look both ways and cross, you know, an extra 2 times. And like he mentioned, people are still going to turn left. It just happens. And with the cars backing up, traffic and parking on the street, it's preserving our neighborhood, like they said, and being able to it be somewhere that I want to walk my dogs and go for walks with my husband and my family, and hopefully future kids. Like, that's what we're trying to preserve. So just some last thoughts for you guys. So that's all from me.
Okay. Any questions for the speaker? No? Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Seeing no one else in chambers, is there anyone online?
There are none.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to council for discussion then, or to the commission.
Chair, if you don't mind, I have that memo that I'd like to read off the correspondence that was received today.
Mr. City Attorney, is it required that we listen to the read-in, or can we attach it to the packet?
When a request is made that the matter is read into the record, if this person was here, they would speak for him or herself.
Alrighty, thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Jones.
All right, so this correspondence was received by Sarah and Zach Coy. Dear Lily, I am writing this letter to express my concern regarding the property currently located at 1491 Alluvial. Our family has recently been made aware of the potential 2-story, 12-unit apartment complex. I am writing this letter to portray my fear of what will occur due to the potential development. My husband and I bought our house at 834 North Fordham Avenue with the intention of staying at this location and having a family. With the potential incoming development, my husband and myself do not feel comfortable continuing the growth of our family with the potential traffic impact and safety concerns that this development will have. How does the City of Clovis plan on addressing my concerns below? What is the current LOS or level of service for Alluvial, and how will the development impact that level? With the existing curb and gutter in place, what is the city's current plan for Alluvial with the incoming development, specifically related to the current cross-section? What safety mitigation measures will be implemented as part of the development? With the increase in traffic, what mitigation measures will be put in place to deter speeding and reckless driving? Apartment complexes typically decrease the value of homes and increase crime within the vicinity. How does the City of Clovis plan on addressing the issue to upkeep the Clovis way of life and keep the neighborhood safe while also increasing the home value? Is this a low-income development? What is the price point of each apartment complex? Does the city plan on changing the zoning on the large dirt parcels in the vicinity of this potential zone change? How does the developer plan on addressing privacy concerns surrounding the potential development? My husband and I planned on attending the meeting, but verbally express our frustration, express our frustration and opposition to the proposed zoning change. But we were unable to attend since we are both sick. I recommend the Planning Commission address our concerns prior to the acceptance of this zone change. If our voice is not heard, we plan on showing up to the City Council and express our opposition to our current City Council member. I hope the City of Clovis reconsiders. I request my letter to be read out loud during the public commenting period.
Questions for Ms. Chung? No? Thank you. Any other correspondence that we need to identify?
No, it is just this.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the council. Any final comments or questions by staff?
I just want to clarify for the second neighborhood meeting that the developer or applicant is required to conduct would be required before the city council meeting is scheduled. And so I don't have a concrete date from the developer quite yet, but they will also be responsible for sending out the notices. The city does not do that. So I do provide them with a mailer list of a 100-foot radius from the project site. So that was the same as the first meeting that occurred. So if you receive a notice, then you should receive it again. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to the council now for a discussion and perhaps a motion or two or three.
Just a couple of questions for Lily, if you can confirm. Can you confirm or talk about that these are going to be market rate? And because I know that it was brought up that they were possibly not going to be. And also, can you reiterate what this does for the housing element and the housing count? If this changes anything for us in terms of it being, you know.
It is.
Right.
Because it's an infill, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, so in regards to the housing element, I mean, the project will provide additional housing stock, and then it'll be counted towards our, if developed, it'll be counted towards our inventory for the income level that it is being rented out at. And it's my understanding that these are going to be market rate apartment complexes. So it'll most likely be in the moderate range and not the low income range.
Any other questions?
I have a question for city engineer. There were some concerns raised around traffic, and in particular, looking at this, someone who's occupying the apartment, one car's in the garage, a lot of people have two cars, second one's in a parking spot, you have some guests, they're potentially competing for these other spots, may get limited real quick. So with that backdrop, if traffic does spill out onto the street, I believe, I was trying to look here, but it's a public street. It's acceptable to park along that street. There's no restrictions to my knowledge. So can you confirm that?
There actually is a bike lane that's there, so there's not parking that's allowed along Alluvial. So if it spills out, it would be parking in a no parking zone.
Okay. So there would be a restriction, which I'm actually glad to hear that, because listening to another concern about the blind corner and not being able to see out, I'm concerned about the access drives there, especially if you see cars stacked, all along Alluvial. So obviously, if people did park there, then they would do so illegally and be subject to whatever, shall happen.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
So Lily, you can confirm that the back, that would be north, has the concrete fence. And I believe you said that that was a 10-foot fence, but because there's a 2-foot drop in elevation, it's truly going to be like an 8-foot fence if you're looking from the neighbor's yard?
So the applicant can choose to install a taller block fence, which will be reviewed through the site plan review process or the multifamily review process. At a minimum, it'll have to be 6 feet from the highest grade. So the highest grade will be on the neighbor's side. So they have to have a 6-foot, basically a 6-foot wall on their side. So it could be 8.5 foot tall on the project side. But the developer can choose to install a taller fencing, but we'd have to review it through, again, site plan review.
And under our purview, we could put in there the condition that we would like it to be taller.
We typically don't condition general plan amendments or rezones.
Okay.
Yeah, so that will be considered through, again, the site plan review phase, which is our multifamily development our multifamily development review process.
Okay, and can you confirm on the east side, is that concrete as well? Is that cinder block?
No.
Or is that?
The existing fencing?
Yeah.
I think the existing fencing is all wood fencing, residential wood fencing.
And they don't have to put a concrete on that side?
No, so the way this works is the developer could work with the property owners to, if they want, to put the block wall up, and then they could remove their portion of the fencing and utilize the block wall as the back of their fencing, or if they want to keep their fencing up, they can do that too.
Well, generally we see them where they do concrete all the way around. That was my question.
Oh, right, yeah, the concrete would be all around the perimeter with the exception of the front on alluvial.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
Lily, I think that and I'm sorry, I don't want to mispronounce your name, so I'm going to call you Mr. Z like someone else did. I believe he stated that because of the tallest elevation, the back wall or the wall itself was going to be more like 10 feet versus the 6 feet. Is that correct?
It could be, like I said, because of the grade difference, the minimum is 6 feet from the highest grade.
Okay.
Yeah, so overall it could be 10 feet, just depending on the elevation differences.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, discussion? No discussion?
I'll go first.
Are you going to discuss or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to. Okay. Well, I want to thank you all for coming out. Obviously, when you buy property and there's an empty lot, everybody assumes there's always going to be a single-family home. I've learned from doing this for a few years that never to make that assumption, and if your realtor tells you that, they generally don't have the authority to say that unless they own the land. I totally hear you. I know if you had a single-family home, you would expect for there to be single-family homes. Given the economy, given land use, given everything, there's always the possibility that there could be changes to the general plan and there could be apartments. I think as a whole, this looks like a nice complex. It looks very well maintained. It looks very clean. Again, like we said before, you could end up with something much higher, much worse density. I think they've done a good job in trying to mitigate some of the noise and some of the light. I would like to see the developer make the fence as tall as possible. If you could go 10 feet just to help with their, requests, I think that would go a very long way in keeping them happy. Not that it's going to completely make you happy, but I think a 10-foot block fence would seriously help with noise and putting in very mature trees, as mature as you can put in. Having said all that, I do hear you, but I think given what we've seen, I don't have any concerns with the project other than trying to mitigate as much of the noise and light as we can to the neighbors. So, my 2 cents.
I'd like to address public and also discussion. So, I will just say ditto to everything the commissioner said and add that I actually went through this with my neighborhood. So I've lived in Clovis for a long time. We bought our home as a single residential, and we loved all our neighbors. We close off our cul-de-sac and have barbecues, and, we just do a lot of things together. Our kids all grew up together, and when I bought my home, I got to smell the lovely fragrance of orange trees and strawberries. And I got to enjoy that for a while, and then the strawberries went away, and then eventually the orange trees went away, and then eventually it was just an open lot for about 14 years. And then came in something like this into our single-family neighborhood. And we had, all our neighbors were very upset, the same thing. It was, I actually was on the commission. I had to recuse myself from that. And it didn't turn out to be quite, well, two things. The developer was not as generous as Sally Development is being. Honestly, they really have addressed your major issues by the setbacks and removing the windows and just trying to do everything possible to allow you the most privacy as possible. And for us, in our neighborhood, it really, it wasn't ideal, but it wasn't also as horrible as we thought. And as a commissioner sitting here with the interest of our entire city, not everyone can buy a home in a neighborhood like this. Not everyone, I mean, we had a younger couple citing that they were in an apartment complex. I know that as a young person, I was in an apartment complex for quite some time. And they never, or at least not where I lived, did I get to live in a nice residence and feel safe, because young people who don't have a lot of funds still want to feel safe. They still want to feel that they're in a good environment, because they also want to walk the neighborhoods and feel comfortable. And I'm more of a proponent of that, of integrating different types of housing elements and different types of ages. You know, if you look at this neighborhood, I can tell that it's, you know, it could be someone closer to my age, or probably early 30s, late 20s. I mean, probably at this time it wouldn't be as affordable. But one of the things also that apartments have such a stigma, and we have so many regulations, like all the brick wall. You guys discussed about how welcoming you are and how your neighborhood is so tight. But because of the negative stigma that is with apartments, there's gating and walls, and I have not met one person that moved into my neighborhood that lives in that apartment, because there's a gate all around. They go in, they park, and they go into their homes. And I walk my dogs in that area, but it's very rare they stay there. So I think it's like two different neighborhoods, although they're all in the same one. So eventually in the future, it would be nice to not have such strict regulations, so that it's a community, not two separate communities that join with each other. This is a good project for what the goals of our city are, which to provide housing for different demographics. And the developer has done, it looks like, as much as he could to mitigate all of the concerns. And Sacramento is pushing a lot of high-density housing, and I think this is a good compromise. So as a commissioner, I can't find anything wrong with this development. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a few. I think Commissioner Antuna and Commissioner Hatcher said some things well. I sit here and I listen to you all, and I hear you. I can't think of too many people who would say, yes, sign me up for a two-story apartment, you know, complex in my backyard, where I thought something like this would never be. I think there is that stigma. I think, you know, you're not going to find a lot of people who are going to say, yeah, sign me up for that. We have wrestled as a commission here with lots of these situations. Some of these are by right. They really are by right. That I can recall a situation several years ago where it was zoned R2. They were proposing some townhouses, and folks were upset with having two-story in their backyard. We actually had no choice. There was no general plan amendment. It was happening, and we saw the developer make a lot of concessions. One of those was actually the windows. They changed the orientation of the buildings. There was a lot of things, and when I read this packet and saw this project come before us, I was encouraged because there was, whether it was requested by the neighbors or not, the developer obviously is in tune with probably this commission and what some of our concerns are. We don't want to say yes to projects that don't integrate with the neighborhood. Our job, our goal here in the city is to figure out where we can find some common ground, where, the city is going to grow. We are not going to be able to stop that. You've heard all night about Sacramento. Yes, it's incumbent on all of us to put our chop on how we want to see things go in our state. But, we're wrestling with this general plan amendment. The general plan is going to be reworked here. It's very possible that all of this zoning changes with the next general plan anyway. So if we were to vote to not take this forward tonight, we could be back here in short order because the general plan may get overhauled. So I see a lot of mitigating controls. I do think, there's always concern with noise. In my neighborhood, I heard the stereo blaring the other day. I live with just a lot of single-story, single-family homes. People can turn the stereo up, and there's follow-up to that. You can call PD if it's that bad. I think the height concern, is mitigated to an extent with the setbacks that are in place. I would echo and would like to see, and if we can do it tonight, I will, put some sort of condition of approval in that we build that fence as high as we can. I would also like to see a condition on the trees. We see the developer saying, hey, we want to put these in, we want to help with the privacy. I want to make sure that in the future, whether owned by the same developer or anyone else, that trees like that can't be cut down without a suitable replacement put back in place. Because you may or may not be there, but someone else will, and they'll have the same privacy concerns that you all have. So as I sit here and look at this, I really have wrestled with it. I really appreciate folks weighing in. Know that, I'll speak for myself here, but I think I can speak for my fellow commissioners. We're very thoughtful about hearing this. We love this city. That's the reason we're here, is that we want to hear from you and influence how things grow to the extent possible. But I see this as a well-planned project with a lot of mitigating controls. But again, I do want to see if we can do some conditions of approval. So whoever may make a motion tonight, I would ask or look for the block wall heights at max and a persistent state for the trees or shrubs around that.
Commissioner Bedstead, just to clarify the point that Lily made earlier, we don't want to condition general plan amendments or rezonings. It's a change to the city's policy documents, and so they shouldn't be conditioned based on the specific design. So if you don't feel comfortable that the change in general plan designation or zoning district is appropriate based on the city's objective standards, then you shouldn't approve the change in density. Our recommendation is based on the objective standards. I think the applicant has also committed to building the design that you see in front of you, but we would not recommend trying to condition the actual policy change that's in front of you.
Thank you for that. Let me ask this then mechanically. If this is approved this evening, are we going to see a site plan review before us, before any build takes place, or is this gone and beyond us at that point?
Yeah, assuming, based on your question, that ultimately the proposal is approved by the City Council, the final review of the site plan and elevations would occur subject to the city's objective standards at the administrative level by staff. So there would not be any public hearings regarding the actual final design at any level.
Okay. I'm going to turn my question then maybe to the applicant if they can answer. Are you willing to accommodate that as part of your site plan review to build the maximum height fences and have a persistent state that the shrubs or tall hedges remain.
Mr. Zakarian himself is not here, and, you know, I can't commit him to anything on the spot, but what I absolutely can commit to is bringing these. I've been taking diligent notes, and he has been very willing to make adjustments to, you know, he's in this community for the long haul. He doesn't want to be at odds and ramming things through. He wants to have a conciliatory, collaborative kind of business practice. So I will bring the feedback to him, particularly that the fence as tall as it can structurally and everything go, and the issue about the trees. He wants the trees there anyway, and so we'll talk about, how can we accommodate this? I'm not sure if there I know in communities I've worked for in the past, there's actually been sometimes limitations about how tall a fence can go. So we'll look through all of that. But Nick and I will get together with Mr. Zakarian and find ways to enhance that to the greatest degree possible. So I can't commit to exactly what that would look like, but we hear the feedback loud and clear. He's in it for the long haul in this community and doesn't want to dismiss things that he's able to accommodate. So that much I can, assure you of.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to make sure you're hearing these folks, and I see that in what was proposed here, but I'll look to you to push that further. I have no other comments.
So Dave, since that comes back to staff for site plan review, can we put anything in writing from us to you guys when it gets to that point, or at that point you're going to follow what the current policy is?
Yeah, the city does have objective standards for multifamily development, and those would be the bottom line. Just like Mr. Zach described in terms of hearing the comments and from the audience and the commission. Staff has heard that as well. I think we'll try to work collaboratively. We have every reason to believe that the owner would try to design this to minimize, any future complaints or problems that otherwise might exist. But the bottom line is that we do have objective standards for multifamily, and we do that so that there's a transparent level of requirement that would apply. So I can't promise you that anything above the objective standards would be implemented, and that's kind of, I just want to be straightforward in that answer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. I too agree with my fellow commissioners and what they've said. I appreciate everyone taking the time to come down here and express your concerns. We've had the similar concerns. I've been on this commission now since 2016. We've been through many of these. I would just kind of throw out, because I visited the site not too long ago, at the northeast corner of Bullard and Temperance, there's an apartment complex significantly larger than this one. We heard similar concerns from the neighborhood regarding that. They worked with the developer. The developer produced a product I think everyone could be proud of in that area. I would hope we could do the same here. We've heard a recurring comment about Sacramento. Sacramento, our legislatures have already passed these laws. It isn't they're thinking about it or the process. They've already passed these laws. So it's really scary to us because we're just citizens like you. We don't have any special expertise. Well, maybe one. We have a real estate man here that's been in the business for many, many years, but it's concerning to us that Clovis will lose its identity and be folded into many other communities that are in the Bay Area or down in LA or what have you. And we really try to dig our feet in as much as we can, given what laws we're given with. Having said all that, this particular development, the developer's got to find something. He purchased land. He's got to find something that's economically feasible. Single story, to my mind, listening to what I've heard in in the past, single story would limit it to 6 units for 1 acre, and I just don't see that as being, economically viable for him. I think that this design of this particular, complex, defers to the surrounding community as much as it can. And I think it's a good project, certainly better than many we've seen in the past. So that's about all I have, but I do appreciate what you're saying, and the time that you've taken to come down and express it. I think I'll entertain a motion, or more discussion, or a motion.
Okay. Then I will make a motion to consider adoption of resolution, 22, a request to adopt an environmental finding of mitigated negative declaration for general plan amendment, GPA 2022-001 and rezone 2022-001.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would you call the roll, please?
Okay, we have a motion, by, Commissioner Hatcher to adopt the environmental finding for the general plan amendment and the rezone, and a second by Commissioner Antuna. Commissioner Hatcher?
Yes.
Commissioner Antuna?
Yes.
Commissioner Bedstead?
Yes.
Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes.
Chair Cunningham?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to consider approval of GPA 2022-001.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Hatcher to approve, the general plan amendment designation, and a second by Commissioner Antuna. Commissioner Hatcher?
Yes.
Commissioner Antuna?
Yes.
Commissioner Bedstead?
Yes.
Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes.
Chair Cunningham?
Yes.
And I'll make a final motion to approve, resolution 2022-001 for the rezone.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Hatcher to approve the rezone application, and a second by Commissioner Antuna. Commissioner Hatcher?
Yes.
Commissioner Antuna?
Yes.
Commissioner Bedstead?
Yes.
Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes.
Chair Cunningham?
And I'm a yes. Let's see here. I think we've gone through our agenda. Is there any final comments from anyone? Seeing none, then I will adjourn the meeting at 7:47 p.m.